Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle. I hope you're doing well. And it's quite early on Monday morning. We're here again in the fields formerly known as the wheat fields, also known as my perfect property. Joke. You had to have listened to the end of yesterday's video to understand what I mean by that. So, Chris McDonough, the interview room, is back online. He had Mary on his show last night. So Mary is one of Don's stepsisters, and she's one of the women who are pressing charges against Don for SA that occurred many years ago. So it's a historical cases of SA. Mary had a theory about what happened to Summer. So it's that I want to discuss in this video. Before I start, I will say that she confirmed out of her own mouth, so not via a third party or a second party, from her own mouth, that Jeannie and her have not recanted their statements. So on the behaviour panel, Don lied. So we're going to analyse the theory that Mary gave in her interview yesterday with Chris McDonough. In a moment or two, I'm going to play you a couple of minutes so you get it from Mary's own mouth, exactly what the theory is. And as I said yesterday, what I want to do is get away from rumours. I want to take this case back to its beginning and look at the evidence. I have a theory which I'm not wedded to. I've never been wedded to any theory. I've gone from, someone was abducted, explain that. I've speculated on whether there's an accident that's been covered up. And then I formulated a theory to incorporate some of the inconsistencies that Grandma said in her Facebook Messenger posts to Crime Stories Obsessed. But actually, I think Mary's theory fits better with the evidence we've got. Donald, Don commented on his Facebook, presumably after this show, and said someone stole the most precious thing in his life. And let's talk about that, because if Mary's theory is correct, someone did steal Summer. Someone did steal her. But it's not quite as Don and Candice would have people believe. Without further ado, let's play you a couple of minutes of what Mary said. Link to the full interview is in the description box. Me and Jeannie were talking one night, and it was actually her husband that came up with the theory, and she's like, well, we're thinking that is what had happened was they had been sex trafficking her, and they done it like a few times before. And is what they would do is take her down to that shed and leave her there. The people would like come and pick her up and then bring her back and, leave the money, whatever. But the few times that they done it before, she would always come back. But this time she didn't. And I kind of think maybe that was the phone call between Donnie and Candace. When she was picking up the prescriptions, he was saying, okay, when you guys get home, take her down to that shed, drop her off, and go back at 5 or 6 or whatever and pick her back up. Well, this time she went back down to the shed and Summer wasn't there. So that's when she called Donnie. And he told her, well, call 911. You know, she's missing. And I think that's why he went to the shed first, to see, well, maybe he brought her back, because she still wasn't there. So that's my theory. So I don't know. That's a pretty plausible theory. In order to analyse this, let's take the case back to the beginning. Let's take the case back to the statements Don and Candice gave to the media back in June. Donald was at work all day. I've speculated maybe he wasn't at work all day. Maybe he left work for some of the day. But we're dispensing with that. We're going back to the beginning. So let's take it at face value and say, no, Don was at work all day. Candice ran a lot of errands. She took Grandma to the hospital to get her knee checked out. She was there very early in the morning. While she was waiting for Grandma, she rang Hunter. He went with them to the swimming hole and to run various other errands. In an interview with Hunter, Chris McDonough revealed that Don rang Candice. Now, the time that Don rang Candice during this day is a little bit up in the air. We're not sure exactly what time, but let's assume it was around 1:33, because that's when the prescription, Grandma's prescription, was picked up from Walgreens. We also know they were at the swimming hole around 12:20, just after midday, based on the TikTok video that Candice posted while they were there. And the final photograph of Summer taken at 3:09. So there's a video that Grandma didn't mean to take, just a few seconds of video, plus a still photo. Then the timeline becomes very, very hazy, because they get home, they plant flowers, they put the shopping away first, then plant flowers. Then Summer gets a piece of candy from Grandma, they wash their hands, and Summer wants to go inside to play with her brothers, who are all inside. They've been in there all day, locked in, no one in, no one out. Candice said to Chris McDonough, no one in, no one out. So allegedly, those boys were inside all day, playing video games, sleeping, watching YouTube, whatever young lads do. So Summer went down to the basement, because that's where she slept and where some of her toys were. Candice was only 2 minutes, or it could have been 5 minutes, but less than 10 minutes, she told Chris McDonough. She went inside, she said, where's Summer? And they said she went down to the playroom to play with her toys. And she went down, Summer was just gone, in her own words. Summer was just gone. And she's never been seen since. So she rang Don. Don told her to ring 911. According to him, he threw his tools in the Subaru. So he takes a virtually new Subaru to a drywalling job, even though he's got a work truck. I've speculated that he took that Subaru for a reason. But, as I said, we're not talking about my theory. We're talking about Mary's theory. So let's just assume he took the Subaru because it wasn't doing anything. It was just sitting there and he was paying for it, right? So he threw his tools in the Subaru and he went home. The journey from where he was working at the Meadows subdivision in Jonesboro should be 35 to 40 minutes drive, according to Google Maps, but he said he made it in 25 to 30 minutes because he drove like a madman, nearly lost it round a corner because he was so worried. Of course he is, because his daughter's missing. En route, he rung 911. Now, we've got some other wired in times here. So the dispatch call was just after 6:30, but the 911 calls, Don made one and Candice made one around 6:23, 6:26, something along that line. So just before 6:30. So we've got 3 hours or thereabouts that we don't know anything about, because we've got that final photograph being taken only a few minutes away from home at 3:09, and then we've got 911 call coming in at just before 6:30. So we've got 3 hours thereabouts. What happened in those 3 hours? Now, we do have some newer information, and this is related to the scream that neighbour Geordie Sue heard, and she also saw what she thinks is a red truck going up Candice and Don's driveway. Geordie Sue reported this to the TBI, to the police, on the night that Summer disappeared, when all the cops started to show up around 7 p.m. They all started to roll in, and there was this massive search. Come on, Tilly, this way. There was this massive search, and there really was a massive search. You know, they blocked off Ben Hill, they blocked off Beach Creek Road. They were searching. This is really muddy. I've got white shoes on. Yeah, cool. Good for me. I've talked about Geordie Sue's claims, and I've gone from, she didn't really hear a scream. She's not lying. She's just misremembering or misattributing a noise she heard to Summer disappearing. Could be kids playing. Her daughter, who was there with her in the cabin, Geordie Sue lived at 125 Ben Hill Road. She doesn't live there anymore, so I'm not doxing her. She's in a safe place now. She was there with her son and daughter. They were in the cabin at the time of the scream, but it was this blood-curdling noise. And the daughter went to the cabin door and said, "No, Mum, it's just kids." But Geordie Sue is adamant now that this was Summer disappearing, and she told Candice this at the time. She apologised, said, "I'm so sorry, I didn't know." And she told the cops at the time. So even though this is fairly new information coming out from Geordie Sue's own mouth on YouTube, now she's kind of speaking out, this is not new to the cops. Although in the last few days, Sheriff Ronnie Lawson has said this scream is unfounded. I don't know what he means by that. Does he mean uncorroborated? No one else heard it. Who knows? Sheriff is a funny guy, in my opinion. He's a funny guy. And I don't mean funny in a ha-ha kind of way. So the scream she heard between 4:30 and 4:42. So we can plug in another time into that timeline. So we know that they got home around 3:30, let's say. Let's take them at the word, and let's say they put groceries away, they planted flowers, they did laundry, and Summer went in. But Candice said to an undisclosed source that was released on Crazy Crime Chicks channel back on the 20th of June that she didn't hear the scream because she was inside searching for Summer. So this must have meant she was searching for Summer around 4:30 to 4:42. So she's gone in looking for Summer. In that split second she went in looking for Summer, someone snatched her, either out of the basement or out of the yard if Summer went out playing. But because Candice was already inside, she didn't hear it. But because Geordie Sue was in a more opportune position, she did hear it. It's far-fetched, isn't it? It's far-fetched. It's split-second timing. Which leads me to believe, although not completely impossible, it's totally improbable that it happened in the way that Candice said. And why did she, if this scream happened at 4:30 to 4:42, and Candice was already looking for her. How come it took them so long to ring 911? Right? All good questions, aren't they? So let's now consider Mary's theory, because in my opinion, Mary's theory fits the facts really rather well. And I have speculated in previous videos that they did sell Summer, but perhaps it wasn't meant to be a permanent transaction. Perhaps they were, how do I put this, renting her out. I mean, God, come on, you know what I mean. As awful as that is, it happens. It does. And Candice and Don don't exactly have great track records of looking after kids. I've speculated that, but incorporating that in my theory, I said that they took her somewhere, so there was a handoff, because that fit the time in which Donald was allegedly not at work between 3 and 3:35ish, and Candice passing by on Lone Star Road, and she could have kind of made her way down to Jonesborough, either gone all the way down to Jonesborough or met him somewhere, and there was a handoff, either as a permanent thing or as a temporary transaction, and whoever took Summer was meant to return her. But I actually think I like Mary's theory better than that. It fits what we now know from Jodie Sue. It also fits that the boys have claimed to have seen Summer go home, because in my handoff theory, Summer never made it home. So it would have meant the boys would have had to lie. And while they were living under the same roof, for those few weeks they were still living under the same roof before they got taken by CPS, it would have been easy to control what they said. But not so much now they're in CPS care. And hopefully, presumably, they're having specialist therapy. They've been questioned, perhaps multiple times, on what really happened. We've heard from Donald that the boys have apologised. One apologised because he didn't go down to the basement to play with Summer. But that's just from Donald's words. What the boys have actually said, in actual fact, we don't know. No one knows. Because they're little boys. We're not going to hear what they say. But they would have had to have lied. But in Mary's theory, everything is as it was said by Candice and second hand by Don. Let's go through it from Mary's point of view. So they get home at, let's say, 3:30, maybe a little bit before. They do some jobs around the house. They may even have planted flowers. That may even have been true. I speculated that they did that, but on a different day, so it was an easy story to keep. But maybe it's an even easier story to keep if they actually did that on that day. But they knew Summer was going to be picked up by someone and then dropped back off later. So this fits everything that we know. So Mary speculated that perhaps they've done this before and they leave Summer in a shed. Now, there's several sheds on the property. When Chris McDonough was there at 110 Ben Hill Road, he showed us that little kind of ramshackle shed that he speculated Donald might have been hiding in. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, but that's irrelevant. There's the shed that's still on the property, but it's like a big shed. It's down on Beach Creek. It's like at the edge of Beach Creek Road and the edge of Don's property. That's the big shed. But in a recent Facebook video that Donald posted, there's another structure that you see in the trees. And if if I'm understanding the map correctly, it looks like that shed is still on the hill. So it's not the shed down on Beach Creek. It's still on the hill. But it's as you start to go down the hill in the trees, it's kind of hidden away. Now, we've never seen that shed before. I've never seen anyone talking about that shed before. So, could something have been happening in that shed? I don't know. I'm just saying. And Donald kept panning to that shed. He kept panning to it. So, whether it was the shed on Beach Creek, whether it's the shed on the property, Summer was left in a shed. She was picked up and she was meant to be returned back to the shed. Now, a return, it would have been a lot easier not to come back up to the property, but to have returned her to the shed on Beach Creek. That would have been a lot safer. It would have been a lot easier just to, you know, it would take a minute to drive in there, chuck her in the shed, leave whatever money and go. Which is why we might speculate the first thing Donald did when he got home was go and check that shed. Now, he said it was because he saw the boys and the neighbour down at the creek and his heart sank and he knew she'd gone. Well, perhaps he knew she'd gone because if she wasn't there, she was gone. And in his own words, she'd been stolen. So, essentially, yeah, she's been kidnapped. She's been stolen. Donald's right. His words are right. He's just missing out one key element, and that is this was an intentional transaction. But it's all gone wrong. And if that's the case, then yeah, they'd have known who that initial transaction was to, but then they won't know what's happened to Summer after that. So they've got some guilty knowledge, but essentially they're telling the truth. They don't know where Summer is. They don't know if she's alive or dead. They don't know if she's been sold to a rich old lady who's looking after her, or whether she's dead, or whether she's been held captive in a dungeon. So yeah, they are genuinely gutted, upset. They've lost the daughter. They never intended that to happen. They're just missing out that one key element, which is their part in that. And of course they can't say that, but it fits what Geordie Sue said. Maybe around 4:30ish, that was when she was being picked up. Let's say 4:30. She's left maybe in the shed on the hill, not the shed down at Beach Creek. So she screams. Some strange guy comes in, picks her up and she screams, which is heard by Geordie Sue. Maybe that person had a truck that they drove part way up the driveway, which is what Geordie Sue saw. I mean, it even fits the search dogs. Not necessarily that she went down the dog trail, but as Dave Rader said, the scent went down the driveway. Well, if a truck was parked partway down the driveway, then maybe there would have been some scent there. I've argued that, well, Summer's scent is going to be all over that property. And indeed it is. Indeed it is. Could it be that Mary is bang on the money? And it's actually not Mary that came up with that. It was Jeannie's husband that came up with that theory. But as I said, I've speculated on that before, that this was meant to be a temporary transaction. And she just wasn't returned, so she was stolen. She was kidnapped. She's been sold. She's been sold on. And that's the secret that Don and Candice are keeping. What do you think to that? I mean, I think it fits the little we know. And as I said yesterday, when I was walking along that path just there, I said this very thing, that in the absence of solid facts, we only have a handful of facts in this case, then you formulate your best fit theory. But you can't be wedded to any one theory, because it's always possible that there's an alternative explanation. So as I've said in previous videos, there's alternative explanations to the scream. There's alternative explanations to why the search dogs picked up a scent. There's alternative explanations to the entire thing. But it's a damn good fit for the little data we've got. So let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you think about Mary's theory? Does it make sense to you? Or do you have an alternative theory? Let me know. So I'll see you in the next video. It's a goodbye from Miss Tillington, who's eating whatever crop this is. She loves fresh grass. She loves it. She loves it. She was like a cow in a previous life, or a pig or something. Definitely a pig, because she loves mud. And it's also goodbye from Miss Cassie Springer, who's off following a scent. Bye, folks.